All right, will you stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, can we have roll call, please, Mary?
Mayor Adrian Sandoval.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Larry Clark.
Here. Harold
Leggett. Nick Ralston.
Aye.
Spencer Bradnan. Troy Blum.
Here.
Hope Morris.
Here. All right, and entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, moving on with the agenda. Audience participation. You guys have anything to add? No? All righty, moving past that. Can I get an approval for the consent agenda, which includes the minutes from January 15th regular meeting of the Board of Trustees?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, consent agenda passed. Action items. We'll start with ordinance 777, an ordinance of the Board of Trustees of the Town of Platteville amending Chapter 2 of the Platteville Municipal Code by the addition of a new article XIII governing advisory committees. Mr. Rankin.
Thank you, Ms. Lee. This has been discussed several times so far. As you all know, the establishment of the citizen advisory committees. This is the ordinance that has worked with the Kinder, our town attorney, on some suggestions from the mayor and the board. I spoke to her again today. The mayor and I spoke about two items specifically. One is on the second page, under 2-13-40 membership, would be subsection B. That addresses, says, provided to the contrary in establishing resolution, all members of the advisory committee shall either be town residents, have children who attend school within town limits, or have immediate family members who reside within town limits. I'll talk to the town attorney. For recommendation, the mayor would open that up to include or reside in the town's urban growth boundary, and she was just fine with that. She understood the reasoning behind that. And on the next page, on subsection D, in terms of advisory committee members, I discussed this with Kinder. She wasn't comfortable doing away with terms. She said the least, once the term is up, the advisory committee member could simply request to remain, and they would just be reappointed to that committee. That she advised not to be returned because we really want to follow what was already established in the governing body, that everybody else has term limits, so there'd be some fairly loose term limits that we keep track of, but she recommended not to get rid of those.
Okay, so do we have term limits? I didn't see any for our.
It'll be addressed in the resolutions that will come on the 19th.
Okay.
That's where she'll specifically address those.
Fabulous. Okay.
Other than that, I don't have any changes or amendments to this. Really just the one amendment is to add urban growth boundary to the residency requirement.
Questions, concerns, comments? All right, I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve ordinance 777, an ordinance of the Board of Trustees of the Town of Platteville amending Chapter 2 of the Platteville Municipal Code by the addition of a new article governing advisory committees as presented.
Second.
That's right.
As amended.
Oh, as amended.
All right, I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Carried. Moving on. Development fee request, Eric Larson, Evergreen Industrial Ltd. 540 Energy Park Drive. Mr. Rankin.
For several months, I've been working with Eric Larson, and his firm is pursuing the purchase of the last available lot at Energy Park, lot 2B. North of Anadarko, there used to be one large lot. It was subdivided several years ago. Mike and Cheryl Caston purchased the northern part of the lot, which is 2A, so 2B will be purchased by Evergreen, or they're pursuing that purchase. He contacted me several weeks ago to discuss impact fees and cost to develop his financial plan to develop the property. Along with gathering information on the building and so forth. I sent Mary an email and she summarized it quite nicely between my correspondence back and forth with Mr. Larson. on the dialogue. His main concern is the transportation impact fee that one of the fees the board adopted back in 2015 after the BBC consulting firm did their study. He pointed out there was approximately twice as much or twice as high as the surrounding communities. As I indicated in the email chain, actually before the email chain in my report, I looked at Milliken, Fort Lupton, and Frederick, and they either have a fee per 1,000 square foot of the structure, or like Fort Lupton, 2% of the total construction value. But doing the math, theirs were half or less than what we have. So I asked Mary to put the report for you to review because most of you weren't here at the time, or many of you weren't here when that was adopted. Reviewing that again today, from what I see is that we had, in my summary, poor infrastructure and a lot of industrial impact on our local roads. And I'd have to ask them to come back to be more specific than that as far as the calculation of that 4.70 per square foot cost for industrial commercial sites. Mr. Larson, I indicated he may be here. He's not, but he was recommending something comparable to $2.50 per square foot, which would be approximately half, just over or just under half. A couple of things that come to mind is we could go to the expense of having BBC come back, which I don't think is necessary to look at this impact fee. The second thing I point out to the mayor is that when the recommendation was made on the impact fee, the recommendation was to adopt the maximum allowable fee from the study. So what that meant is, at the time, the board did that. But the board has the right to adopt less than the maximum allowance for impact fees. So you could adopt something less than the 4.70 per square foot, and nothing more. I think, without doing more research, I looked at the study. They did some comparables to other communities that I didn't look at any further detail. At the time, it looked like it was fairly comparable. But I try to focus on our local competitors, what they call them, in our 85 region. And as I point out, looking at their code and their impact fees, they do have lower fees. The rest of them look fairly comparable across the board, but this one just he pointed out. My recommendation is, if the board decides to reduce this fee, you have the legal right to do so. But I would not do it for just this applicant. I would do it, set a fee that we amend the code to where it's set for all new commercial. This is our first new industrial commercial development since the fees were adopted in 2015, believe it or not.
Wow.
We've had residential, but not new commercial industrial.
So can we lower the price for him before we do a resolution, if that's the way the board chooses to move forward?
Well, I don't think they'll be paying this when they submit the building permit. So if you did that tonight, I would have Kendra draft, or actually Mary could make the change in the fee schedule. Because that's what it is, it'd be a fee schedule amendment to reduce this fee to something a little bit less, maybe more competitive to our community, surrounding communities. And then once that's adopted on the 19th, our next regular meeting, it would basically go into effect. They would not pay these until they submit a building permit. They're not even close to doing that yet. They overestimated the size of the lot, so they had to downsize a little bit on the building. So they're working with David and Steve with their sign on that.
And what kind of companies is going to be up there?
They're going to purchase, the company with Eric Larson and Evergreen is going to purchase the lot. They're going to develop it to suit. And the client is a company called NOW, it's National Oil Well. And it's basically a pipe here that has some counter sales, retail at the counter, but most of it is storage in the back of the large metal building. And when I talked to Larry a little bit on Monday, we're looking at what else would this building bring into the community. So I looked at the sales tax, and I looked back at what, years ago I contacted Mike Woodruff from the assessor's office, and he gave me their special formula. It's not special, but. So I looked at the actual valuation. They're estimating about $1.945 million cost to this new building. I compared it as comparable to across the street, Energy Park Drive. I compared it to Reliance, which is the new business over there. Ironically, when I look at on the assessor's office, it's almost the identical same footprint, saying valuation, or actual valuation. And so I took the actual valuation times the assessment rate, which is 29% for industrial commercial, according to the assessor's office. Time our mill levy at 18.385 mills, divided by 1,000, that's the formula. Came up with $10,370 in property taxes for the town of Platteville. And when I looked at Reliance across the street, that's basically what they paid this last year in property taxes. So I don't see valuations going down with the recession, but that of interest would be something that this property coming to town, once it's built, would bring in revenue-wise annually, and not knowing what potential sales tax would be. And the employees, similar to, probably not ready, but probably to Willow Creek, which doesn't have a building yet, the temporary, and then Reliance, it'd be probably 10 to 15 employees, mostly in and out, home pipe. So it would match what we already have up there as an industrial property. I don't have a big concern if the board wants to lower it. I wouldn't go less than half, maybe somewhere in the middle. But again, it's up to you, your discretion.
I don't see a problem with lowering it, we don't want to turn away any business.
I agree with that.
Here's the back of the envelope map. If the town receives its approaches stated $10,370 in annual property tax, which we currently don't get, and reduced the transportation impact fee to $250 from $470, it would take 4 years to break even. You're gonna lose 40,000 by reducing it to 250, but you'll gain a little over $10,000 in property tax annually. It'll be 4 years before you break even. That's just the math. I'm not drawing any conclusion from that. I know that there's a lot of support for encouraging economic development in town, and I fully support that idea. It's just thought that I'd do the back of the envelope map, just so you have that.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
I'm all in favor of reducing it, but not at the price he suggested. Is 3 or 2.75, something more reasonable. That, I mean, I don't want to turn away business like Hope had said.
Yeah.
We want the property tax, but I don't want to take too much of a wash on that too.
And when I had the the phone conversation with Mr. Larson, and I told him I would present this to the board for his request, I emphasized that road improvements and transportations are very vital in Platteville. I mean, that's the backbone of how the community voted for the capital improvement fee, the 1% sales tax increase back in 2009. We promised to focus on streets and sidewalks. I understand its business plan, but if this gets out in the business world that Platteville has higher fees than others, then that could hurt us.
Yep.
I mean, that's just the cost of doing business. Again, looking back at the report from BBC, remembering that conversation, the board has the right to adopt up to the recommended, but anything below that, whatever you want to negotiate or you're comfortable with, that's completely legal.
So you're talking about adopting this for other future expansion, for other business. So say we do give them 2.5 and all the other businesses we get 2.5. This would be a negotiated rate based upon economic status.
My recommendation is, in all fairness, to do it across the board. Just amend the fee schedule to reduce this impact fee for transportation to a lower amount.
We don't wanna start,
Period.
allowing one company to come in and
Right,
know that
like favoritism.
the
or whatnot.
fees and then, yes, correct.
How long has the company been in business? Are they a new company? I mean,
Evergreen, I did research it, but when I asked him, he said they've been in business quite a while as a landowner to kind of like what Mr. Boehner did with Energy Park. There's a group of partners are investing in this property to make money, releasing it.
Or do you mean the National Oil Well Company, or the developer?
the oil company, sorry, yeah.
The old company I don't know a whole lot about. I met 2 representatives from Now, they call themselves Now, and I believe they're out of the Texas area, but they wanted to located up here, to have a base up here in this area.
Yeah. And Evergreen is the investors.
Yes, Evergreen is actually purchasing, or trying to purchase the lot, it's not finalized yet. I did speak with Del Painter, which is another topic later in the packet, but, he felt that the sale would go through, that they had a pretty reasonable price. And they wanted to dump the property, they want out of Platteville, no offense, Platteville, but he says, I'm 65, I'm retired, I don't want to go anymore.
Yeah.
And his partners for the same way.
I think, you know, we talk about the roads and take care of our roads and stuff around here. And a lot of this that's coming in that we do get for the commercial is heavy equipment, heavy trucks, you know, and you know, driving around these kind of roads all the time, you see the damage that these trucks are doing to the roads. So, I think, I'm like with Nick, I don't think the 250 is where I wanna go, but I would say like $3 a square foot would be some comfortable, because, you know, we do have these big heavy trucks driving on these roads out here, and, around the energy park, stuff like that, that over time is gonna, you know, damage the 32.5. It's just a mess, you know, and we gotta keep on trying to repair that and patch it, so.
Well, in reality, as we all know, in order for the energy park companies to access 85 northbound, you know, it's a gamble taking kind of 34, and you come back to 32 here by Town Hall, take the light. So it's not just their impact, it's impacting Main Street, it's impacting Grand Avenue, so I can't disagree with that. But
The roads that were developed over there at the energy park, was that paid for by the investors to develop all that? So those are already paid for, those numbers.
yeah, the Platte Energy Partners and Investment LLC had paid for all that infrastructure, curb, gutter, road, sidewalks, water, sewer, that,
But the maintenance is ours
Right.
in the future.
Which impact would be directed towards.
only new.
Percentage.
Yeah, maintenance impact fees is only for new, like building Realms Avenue, that'll be a new road technically, but we can't use it for maintenance.
Okay.
No. Certain restrictions on impact fees. Same with system investment fees for water and sewer, they can't be used for operations.
Anything to add, Harold? Anything to add?
No.
I make a motion to move to approve the reduction in the transportation impact fee from $4.70 per square foot to $2.50 per square foot as presented.
Second.
Well, were we talking 3?
Did we all decide on 2.5?
Oh.
We were
talking
talking
$3.
about $3 instead of
Oh,
$2.50.
sorry.
That doesn't make the motion out of order. That doesn't make Hope's motion out of order, just because there was discussion of other amounts. You could choose to vote down the motion, or the discussion can amend it.
Well, that's what we were discussing.
Right.
So you guys,
Sorry, I thought it was,
do you guys wanna talk about it? Do you wanna amend it to 3, or do you guys wanna stay at 250?
I'd like to stay with 250.
Yeah, I think 3 is a little more than it need be.
Well, we're looking at $1.70 a square foot in reduction already, going to 3 compared to over.
Understood. I think in light of making the town attractive for developers, so on and so forth, you don't want to price yourself out of the market.
Well, I think still with the $3, we're still within what the market is out there.
That doesn't seem to be the opinion of this developer. Not that either one of it is right or wrong, that's the crux of the
Business
issue.
of developing, so I guess maybe I took this as a negotiation, like, okay,
Here's ours, and
here's
here's
4.7, I'd say 2.5, come back with a counter offer of 3, end up with 2.75. I mean, that's the impression I got out of this, was kind of, he was trying to, maybe he was trying to lowball us and state that, you know, this is kind of high, this is what we're paying elsewhere. You said it's pretty close, the 2.5 is relatively close, or more towards a medium low?
Just the 3 communities I looked at it, I just calculated what the 3 would be instead of 86,362, it would be reduced to $55,125 if you went with 3. So obviously reduce that by that 5,000 give or take. But the other communities, it was still significantly higher than the others.
At $2.50 is significantly higher
Oh, it's
than
still
other
higher
communities.
than-
Yes.
It's still higher.
Okay.
And that's the risk of pricing yourself out of the market.
Right, no, I understand that, I don't wanna do
Yeah,
that.
we can't turn away, I mean, we really can't, we're trying to develop this town.
We're almost half of one community. Or twice as much, I'm sorry.
Not about to give away the farm, but at the same time, you have to make it attractive.
Yeah, I understand that.
Smart money.
But I don't wanna shortchange the
Smart
town
money
either.
goes somewhere else.
Right, no, I understand, Nick, what you're saying.
And to me, when I read that, I thought, he's a developer trying to negotiate,
Right,
per se, I guess, maybe I just think as a business mindset, go in, lowball, come back with a counter offer, but,
Of course they're doing that. I mean,
Yeah.
and any smart businessman would.
but since Troy did the research and you're comfortable saying 2.5 is reasonable, it's still a bit higher than other,
It's still higher than the 3 I looked at, and looking for it would still be higher than theirs, based upon this example, the square footage of this facility.
And would return you back to the property tax issue too. That you're looking at a reduction of $40,000 in the fees, approximately, at $425.
4 years
And,
of property tax.
and in 4 years' time, we'd recover that in the property tax if the assessment of the property did not go up or down. So it's, pay me now or pay me later type of thing. I mean, you're gonna get the money one way or the other. Especially if you attract the business.
Unless they choose to go elsewhere, then we're not getting any money.
Well, right, then you're not getting
right.
it.
And, maybe if they're being retail, maybe somebody or a couple of people from our town maybe get hired, on this, and that would really, when I first read this Sunday, when I was looking at it Sunday, at first I thought, forget it, it's gonna pay the 470. But then after hearing Troy and stuff,
I guess also what, I know, the Fort Lupton is what they're also looking at, or were they possibly looking at, developing the Fort Lupton property or Milliken property, or?
He said they looked in the area, and this was for where now one could be their tenant. Was their first option, but he did indicate if it didn't work out, they would, it's business, they would look elsewhere. But he didn't say specifically. What he specifically asked is for the board to consider the word he used was relief. When he pointed out 250, he said that was what he typically anticipates for the transportation. On average was 250. He wasn't necessarily asking for 250, he was just pointing that out. That may be his sideways of saying this is what I prefer, but
Yeah,
it's business, I get that.
Well, that's what I mean, he's a business guy, he's trying to lower his
Cost?
His budget to
As
build his
anyone would.
facility.
Right.
And I went through the same thing with Mr. Boehner and his partners, Nick Francis, when they developed an energy park. We didn't have these fees established, but, the cost for the infrastructure, bringing in the water. The water was a big negotiation for that development because we required CPT, we didn't have any other options. Other communities have less requirements, that was that then, this is now, so this is a new conversation.
Yeah.
But I do think we have to be consistent.
Yes.
So
Whatever, it
are we
has to
gonna
be a resolution.
adjust the fees next meeting to bring it down to that price, or what do we
If
do?
the board makes that recommendation, then I would bring back the fee schedule with that adjustment for the board to approve on the 19th. But right now, we have a motion and a second on the floor.
So let's vote on
So,
250.
even if you wanna go higher, you still have to address the current motion second because it's been made.
Yes,
So,
please.
sorry, but like.
I thought everybody was done.
Harold Leggett,
Yes.
Nick Ralston,
Aye.
Spencer Bradnan, Troy Blum,
Aye.
Larry Clark,
Aye.
Hope Morris.
So to be clear, we're moving forward with $2.50.
For square foot for transportation. we'll bring that to the board on the 19th. Okay.
Are there any other fees that we need to address based off of just looking at this situation, or is that the only one?
I went ahead and looked at the others, all these other communities, and I think they're comparable. I mean, they're not exceptional. Some are high, some are low. So actually, that's good. I'm glad you brought that up, so I want to bring this back again and again.
Yeah.
But that was the one that stuck out. I had to say that.
I think we should look at our fees and compare it, just so we're in the market to where we can have businesses come here and not chase them away.
Absolutely.
And I'm fine with industrial. I think we have adequate industrial, but we want to focus on commercial now, and that's the real driving thing for our future.
All right, moving on with water and sewer requests, Mr. Rankin.
Here a number of weeks ago, David brought this to my attention, our Old Castle, I'm sorry. Yes, Old Castle Infrastructure, I call it Old Castle Precast, they changed their name. In your packet is correspondence and email that was sent to David from the manager out there. And at first I wasn't sure what I was looking at, then when they explained it further detail. As you all know, probably here in Platteville, they prefab concrete, you know, the culverts basically. And a lot of their water use does not go into our system. You know, we assess everybody for water use for potable, but also sewer based upon the use of that water. I feel their articulation is pretty reasonable. It makes sense that you're not going to, you know, pour concrete and find a way to get down a sewer system. They're connected as well as two other properties, which is Brown's to the south of them, and then JD High School on the north. But the rest of them, like United Ready Mix further south, they're not part of the system. That's where it stops. The rest of them are septic. So I wanted to address that as well, make sure this was not going to keep occurring. I'm going to ask David if he has any more input, but simplistically, I can't argue with their math. They did a pretty decent job. They also submitted the last 12 months of each utility bill showing. We didn't have that because that was, you know, this snapshot I think showed what they were trying to accomplish. But it's a good business. They do bring in some sales tax depending on how product is picked up, and if they're doing work here locally or selling work here locally. You know, there's some months the past couple of years where I've noticed a big bump in several $1,000s per month in sales tax. It's been nice. Decent company to work with. I defer to David. He probably works with more than I do. But did you have anything you want to add on this one, David?
I really don't. I mean, it's fairly self-explanatory, and a business just trying to cut their expenses like most businesses are trying to do right now, and I don't see this as an unreasonable request.
So this is the second relief request. They're asking for relief of the fees because they believe they can show, and I can't argue with them, that they're paying for a service they're not getting. They're not putting all their water down our sewer system. And driving out there and seeing what they do, it doesn't make a lot of sense. So I don't.
Does this put them at a residential rate?
No, they're still at the same rate. They're just less volume now if you reduce.
And how's that do for billing? Is it something that you have to do in the billing cycle for them?
It's just a base calculation that would change.
Yeah.
So rather than saying their average was $1,000 a month, we'd say it was 100, for example. Once you plug that in, it's on its own.
Yeah, the formula kicks in the system and automatically generates it. So on the base is calculated these 3 months of the year, January, February, March, and then it's set for the remainder of the year.
I'm trying to use a lot less water.
What's that?
I'm trying to downgrade it, use a lot less water.
You've got girls. Good luck with
I
that.
know.
Yeah, good luck.
I can still try. Yeah, I don't see any problem with that either. I mean, they're not using the sewer system to disperse their waste.
And they've had a complaint. It's just, you know, they're looking at their budget. I don't know what specifically brought this up, but they were analyzing it, and I like their justification. I think they did a good job presenting it. So,
Yeah, because ultimately, they'd have to increase to make a profit still. If this does want to affect the standstill, they have to increase their prices of their product, which possibly could run business out of Platteville and close them up too.
It's just a vicious circle, isn't it?
It is.
They have plants in multiple other communities throughout the country, and they said that they were just looking at this facility and starting to go over the books on it, but that they have had other communities that have looked at it and allowed them the same type of relief in this situation, because it isn't, I mean, when the sewer fee is put out there and based on the water usage, it's assumed that somewhere in the neighborhood of 80 to 90% of the water that goes through the water meter actually goes down the sewer line. So but we don't have a meter on the sewer line. That would be the most fair way to do it, but I have yet to find a meter that doesn't clog on the sewer line. So,
Get a paddle.
so anyway, he was very polite, very respectful. We asked for the presentation of what they wanted, what they were hoping for in a written format, so there wasn't really any questions on it. They complied with all that, and they do have the meter that batches. I mean, they put a very specific amount of water into every batch of concrete, and they've got how much sand, how much concrete, how much water, all the different mix for every batch that they do all month long.
So they basically meter it, what they do. Yeah. And it's the backbone of their business, they have to have it. And they have other, and again, like the previous situation with the transportation fee, like what else could this impact? You know, like myself, you know, I water outside during the summertime, I don't put it down in the storm drain. That's not required, that's an option. This is their requirement, they need to do it. So, some people not like it, but it's a good viable business on people. I think they did a good job articulating, we're not using the water down the sewer system. So I'm okay with it, but no less than 50%.
Right.
Any other questions, comments, concerns? I'd entertain a motion, please.
At the discretion, do I read that at the discretion of the board?
No.
No. Move to approve a sewer usage rate calculation reduction based upon the 47.4% water usage figure as presented in the consumption data sheet provided.
Second.
I was recommending 50%. I know that's worded, but that was his request, I was recommending, but you can do whatever, I'm sorry.
Well, you can amend it to 50%.
With the amending of your correction of 50%.
I like even math.
I'm not doing the math, so.
Okay, I have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Alright,
And we made that 50.
50%.
And that has the
And amended to 50.
Yes. Alright, moving on, the purchase offer, track B, Platteville Energy Park, Mr. Rankin.
Thank you. I've been working on this for a couple of years now with Mr. Banger. When the Energy Park developed, they came in 2011 with their annexation proposal, and they started building around 2013. First, the Anadarko side. The subdivision had track B, which is south 32.5 to Rounds Out. That intent was to be, during that annexation discussion, we said we wanted some kind of commercial component for retail, for sales tax. I had a feeling, which was pretty much proven right, they really wanted to do industrial. They had no intention of doing retail, which I don't blame them. That's company business. To tie this in, this past year, we had an opportunity to negotiate to purchase Platte River Farms, about 50 acres on Southside 66. That has all but fallen through. There's no more correspondence with the representative. I asked them to produce some more information on the mining operations and all the restrictions, and they just don't, they're not going to respond. The town went to pursue that for maybe some parks open space and maybe water storage, whatever, because it's going to open. But since we can't dig out there, that's kind of fell off the table. So, falling in line, track B means to me, and I'm posing this to the board, as I outlined in my report, there's currently water retention for Anadarko next to 32.5. Working with Steve Gutierrez, engineer, and David, due primarily to the new fire station, we need to increase our water storage capacity for stormwater. It flows right to that property. So I put in the packet a general concept that Steve, our engineer, produced that number one, that current pond, which is on the corner of Main and 32.5, would be relocated, basically filled in and a new pond built over closer to Division, and then expanded south, north of what I call Earl Ryder's old property. Happened to run into Nick Silva, who lives along Division across Energy Park, and he thought it was a great idea, because that's kind of what he does for a living. Even a kid, if he got the contract, he got raped and built those ponds. That's known quite well. But anyway, that would be number one use. Number two is open up what Steve Papira put on here, 2 developable commercial lots to bring in new retail to Platteville on Main Street. One would be a rough estimate of 1.7 acres, and one would be 1.2 acres. And we're going to talk next week with Upstate Colorado about incentivizing, bringing in retail. Conversation keeps circulating about what amenities we need and where can we put them. So this is just one opportunity I thought of. High visibility on our main drag on the north side. Ideas like, fast food or whatever. I mean, because you have roughly 1,000 employees daily within a block from that facility. So it's not just for locals, it's for our daily employee base that comes in on a regular basis. So that was the second thing. The third part, on the south side of that property, there's 3 gas oil wells. I'm not sure which one is gas or oil. But it encumbers that corner because of the 150-foot setback. My neighbor, John Rupel, currently, for many, many years, he was friends with Mr. Bolter. He owned that property years ago. He's always stored stuff in there. He's got chickens. It's no secret. He told me a couple of times in the last couple of years he would be willing to buy it if it was offered for sale. I don't know if he's still interested or not, but it can't be developed, but he would utilize it in more of a ag garden or chicken raising capacity. He told me he'd fix that shed up because it needs to. I told him, I said, we have an abatement process, you need to tear that down. He said, I'd fix it, but I don't own it. So there's another option. So I'm just trying to think outside the box of all possible uses for this property.
So that would take that, around that, where that shed is, and there was oil wells in that area, is what you were?
Basically, I would subdivide this into 4 lots. 1 for water retention, 2 lots for commercial, separate, and then 1 to sell or be encumbered around east of Earl Ryder's property.
Nothing else can be done with that.
But you can't develop anything with those setbacks. Because on that map I put in there, there's the circles that were drawn, and until those are plugged in and abandoned, you can't develop anything. It's a great corner, but we can't use it. So that I call kind of a throwaway corner on this property. But the potential of 2 commercial retail lots over an acre in size is very enticing to me. And it'd be easy access to our residents and to our industrial folks that work here in town. So I'll be up, and I told Dale I was going to be up front with the board. A couple years ago, when Dale and I first started talking about it, he threw out a number out of the air from 150. So when we started talking about it again before this last election, he said he talked to his partner, and he came back with 200. So I kind of gave him some grief, and I said, I know inflation is high, but not that high. But he came in and he said, well, that was their first offer, and they're expecting, if you want to counter, you can. So I would like to counter, if with the board's permission. I think it's an investment the town could use for multiple reasons. To attract and bring in new real retail that would increase both property and sales tax. Also, it would potentially, Steve Bethers doesn't know it, but it may alleviate some stormwater off rentals, and he's currently designing that. We just don't know if it'll meet grade yet down Division. So.
How much money did we have set aside for Platte River?
150.
150. Okay.
Well, it was set aside to just the general fund call it trust, I would not advise.
Right.
And I don't think, in my personal opinion, that he would be insulted if we made that offer. He may come back.
150.
And then we would break up into 4.
My suggestion to the board is subdivide the 4 lots.
And then what's the market value for a lot like that?
For over an acre.
Yeah.
I can't remember the details of that, but Dale throws at me cost per square foot, I didn't do the math. I mean, he's throwing out $4 to $5 a square foot, so I'd have to do the math on that.
I was curious that.
I didn't do that research, Troy should have. Right now, residential average, looking around, is around 30,000 just for a residential lot. So something like this, I don't know, double, triple it, I don't know.
But the potential is great.
If I may, the third of an acre lot that the town just sold, the individual that purchased that from us, you know, was purchased for 35. It's on the market at 60.
It's still for
And
sale.
that's a third of an acre.
It's a third of an acre.
But I think we're 150 to 175, we sell those, so I don't wanna be a landlord by any means. Sell them, to somebody that's beneficial to Platteville, make our money back, and then start making money off real estate property tax. That's the theory. But I'm requesting the board consider this and allow me to make a counter offer, so I think we can get better price than 200.
I'd agree.
I think 150 is my ballpark. But you have to consider that, yes, they're potentially valuable to the town, but these people want to sell it too, or it wouldn't be for sale. And this is a situation that doesn't require a mortgage, a qualification, or anything else. It's not like buying and selling a house, where there's some uncertainty as to whether or not the buyer is going to qualify or come up with the money.
Where's the water sewer on that property out there? Would they have tied within the streets out there?
You've
There is water right along the Main Street side of that lot,
Okay.
of both those lots. The sewer line is gonna be a little bit more of a trick, depending on how grade falls, cause there's sewer back in Reynolds Avenue, which is at the south side of the lot, or up in 32 and a half. There is no sewer anywhere else in the lot. So trying to sewer that second one might take some creative engineering to figure it out. May end up being similar to how Town Hall is here, with a grinder pump system and a force main to push. I mean, 1, 2, 3, 4 of the existing Energy Park facilities out there they have their own lift stations and force main already, so that's not unheard of.
So the main is up on 32 and a half?
There is a main on 32 and a half, and there's a main down in Reynolds.
And that wouldn't be our responsibility, so.
No, but I was just thinking that somebody came in, how easy would it be for them to tie into
Right.
water and sewer?
So as the owner of a vacant lot, having those utilities more available is better. The water is right there, the sewer would take a little bit of creative engineering, but not terrible.
There's another factor in this too, is the development and paving of Reynolds Avenue and the creation of this detention pond that's required as part of the engineer. So to be able to make the pond size bigger and send that water there is to our advantage. Is
Potentially.
We're looking at whether we could make the grades work to do that or not, Larry. At this point, we're not sure, so there is potential, but we don't know how great of a potential that is.
But to be
I
in
would
control of the property would definitely.
Well,
be
to
an
be in
advantage.
control, I mean, regardless of, to be in control of the property and be able to move these detention ponds, because right now, to be able to move, we'll be able to get into the existing one with coming north from the new firehouse and from what's going on there, but it's not an ideal situation. You see on that second map there with the 2 ponds that are on it, or indicated where they could go, there is a gas line easement right through the middle, and we're gonna have to figure out how to get past that gas line into the existing detention pond regardless. But yes, there may be, and I use the term may very strongly, some benefit that we could, excuse me, lower those ponds a little bit and create some additional space coming off of Reynolds, which would alleviate the size, or help minimize the size of the ponds that'll have to be along Reynolds. And there will be additional ponds along Reynolds, it's just a matter of how big and where.
That's a good point. We're gonna have cost to actually do this excavation of those ponds. We just don't know what that'll be yet. I mean, that's above and beyond this, that'll be additional cost to us, but
So would we move those ponds before we try to market that out there, or?
I would, because if, the reason being is if that second pond for the town to use doesn't need to be that big, we then potentially could have maybe a 2-acre parcel instead of a 1.7-acre parcel, which is more attractive. A larger possible retail that has some storage, or parking lot, or whatever the case may be. And it would fit up there because, you know, across the street is old TJT, which is now occupied by a tenant, didn't sell to the tenant. Of course, Lumberjays across the street. The little rotos would have to go. They're out there now.
Yeah, so mountains in the picture below.
Yep, you can see them on the aerial signs.
Are you looking for a do not exceed amount, Mr.
I'm fine with it. I mean, I'm just looking at amount. I want one amount to negotiate.
I would say let's start at 150 and then see what he bites on that.
I know previously the board officers said, don't start here, then don't exceed this. I just want one amount because one thing I indicated to Dale, and I brought up the Platte River Farms possibility, that was our budgeted amount, which really had not changed. I planted that seed.
I entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the counter offer in an amount of, based upon discussion for the purchase of the track E Platteville Energy. I'll try for $150,000. Not more to exceed $150,000. Right?
Motion and a second. Roll call, please, Mary.
Spencer Brennan, Troy Blum,
Aye.
Larry Clark,
Aye.
Hope Morris,
Yes.
Harold Leggett,
Aye.
Nick Ralston.
Alright.
Before we move on, can I bring up a related topic? Part of my conversation with Mr. Boehner is when they first came in, they bought 15 shares of CBT water to provide each lot with some shares as needed for the development of the energy park. And as years went by, they would allocate so many shares of that portfolio that they established, Anadarko, Ready Services, so on and so forth. They had 1.5 shares left. The property we previously talked about, track 2B, came in, they said they needed 1.5 shares of water, they only requested 1. So going back to my conversation with Mr. Boehner, he said along with this acquisition, for track B, the town could buy the other half share. And I just want to let the board know this, that my comment back is why? You've already dedicated it for the town's use. So he's gonna bring that up, but I fully found declining that half share. Because it's already dedicated to the town, and I'm not trying to be unfair to Mr. Boehner, but why spend money on half share of water that we're already using? So I just want to expose that.
You're a shrewd town man.
It's like water my own yard, but paying the neighbor's water bill. Utility bill, sorry.
Okay, moving forward, agreement for services for SCADA, Mr.
This one, because Mr. Brand's here, is not going to defer to him.
Thank you, Mr. Rankin. This is, excuse me, one that I have had in the budget. This year's budget is the second go-round. I put in enough money to buy the software and the hardware. I did not put in enough money to get it programmed last year, so we're going to try round 2 with enough money to do both. The SCADA system that we use is mostly a monitoring system, monitoring and alarm system for, the sewer lift stations, the lagoon, make sure that we have power. It monitors that we have power at all sites at all times. If we lose power at any site, we immediately get an alarm on that. Excuse me, if we have pumps that are running too long, or we get a low level or a high level, especially high levels, we get alarms on those. At all of the lift stations, in the water tanks, if we have a significant water leak that would drop the level in the tank at a certain percentage, we get an alarm on that. Or if we get a valve that's stuck open and we're overfilling the water tank and watering the cemetery unplanned, we also get an alarm on that. So it's a pretty critical piece of equipment. When I got here 10 years ago, we upgraded the system. At that time, they had a proprietary system that was fairly ancient, and the company that was taking care of it was Healy Ruff, and they were out of the either Michigan or Minnesota. I don't remember, one of the two cold MI states up there. And they had to send a rep down, and they offered to do that at $1,500 a day to have them come down and look at it and help us figure out what was going on, plus airfare. That didn't include the airfare. So we opted at that time to upgrade the system to the Rockwell system, which is a industry standard. It's not proprietary. There are somewhere in the neighborhood of 25 to 40 vendors in the Denver Front Range down to Pueblo area that will deal with this, that can deal with it. So that was part of the criteria that we opted for when we redid this 10 years ago. We have done one software update, and we've done one hardware update in the last 10 years. But the last 2 to 3 years, I put 2 years on here because I know that for sure, and it may be closer to 3. The version of the Rockwell software that we're using is no longer supported. So we haven't been getting any kind of updates, any kind of patches, anything like that. Now, we haven't done anything and tried to increase or do something else with the system, so we really haven't, it was working fine, so we really haven't needed to do anything. But there are a few tweaks that I need to be able to make that the old software is no longer supported and isn't a viable option anymore. And they're not putting any kind of patches on it if hackers are getting into it and that kind of thing. So there's none of those updates are being done. So at this point, the copy of the proposal is there. In the software and the hardware, there's $8,300, and then his labor costs are around $10,000, just over $10,000, to come in and set up all of our screens again. Update everything, get it to talk to all of the different lift stations, and we're not updating any of the radios or anything that are at the lift stations. Those, I talked to him just this evening before the board meeting, because he had had to reset one that had overcalculated itself into an air mode at one of the lift stations. And those are still fully functional, fully compatible with the upgrade that we're doing, so we don't have to do the upgrades to the radios there. So that's a long way around to get to basically a $20,000 upgrade. The way I look at the alarms on the lift stations, if we back up because we don't get an alarm, if we back up into one finished basement, I guarantee it's going to cost the town more than $20,000. Not to mention the PR headache that would go along with that. I'm just talking the strict costs of trying to repair that basement, repair, replace, whatever would have to happen there. So this is an item that we have budgeted half in the water fund, half in the sewer fund. It is an expected wear item that, you talk to the IT people, if you got a computer that's 5 years old, that might as well be a dinosaur. But, so I'd be happy to attempt to answer any questions.
I have an easy one for you. Shows here at Alpine Controls and Engineering, address in Brighton.
So he's between Fort Lupton and Brighton.
Okay, and that's who you've been dealing with?
It is.
Okay, so they're nice and close.
They are. Brad, he was working in Southwest Denver earlier today and opted to come up here to meet me because he knew I was gonna be here late to be here for the meeting this evening to help make the repair that we needed made. I've had him here at 2 o'clock in the morning, and he's 20 minutes away. So that's one of the reasons I like to use him. And when he does all the programming and sets everything up, then he gives me a copy of all that, so that if he does get hit by a bus next week, I can go find one of the other vendors, and we have all the programming and everything, that they could go back in and backtrack what he did and be able to work with it and help us. So.
Okay, so make sure I understand this. So this $20,000 you're asking for was not budgeted at budget time?
It was. I only budgeted 16,000 last year.
Oh, okay, so you just need another 4,000.
I needed some additional, so
Oh,
this year we
okay.
budgeted 10 in each verse, or I guess we only budgeted 12 last year, because it was 6 in each that I had budgeted last year. So what had happened, Hope, is I had requested how much the hardware and software package would be, and he had told me around 10,000, so I had added some to that. I didn't think about the fact that we had a fair amount of labor involved in resetting up the screens and dealing with all of the programming to bring the new one in and make it do what the old one was doing and do it better.
So where's this money coming out of?
10,000 out of the water fund, 10,000 out of the sewer fund. And they were budgeted for the 2019 budget in both funds.
Okay. Oh. And so when these alarms come up, I know this has nothing to do with food. They go to your phones, right? I mean, is that how you guys know?
We do get it via phone. It comes in via text message and an email. And it goes to the on-call operator and it goes to the public works director, regardless of who the on-call operator is.
Okay. All right, I don't have a problem with that. It is what-
I move to approve an agreement for services with Outside Controls and Engineering LLC for purchase, installation, and testing of factory top view monitoring and control package in an amount not to exceed $20,000, subject to review by legal counsel, and authorize mayor to execute same. Second.
Have a motion and a second. Roll call, please, Mary.
Troy Blum,
Aye.
Larry Clark,
Aye.
Hope Morris,
Yes.
Harold Leggett,
Aye.
Nick Ralston,
Aye.
Spencer Brennan.
All right, moving forward, feasibility presentation, building performance for town facilities, Apollo Solution Groups. Mr. Lincoln?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As I indicated in my staff report, David and I met with, I can't remember her name, Tara from Apollo. She was also one that presented information to the board several months ago. They completed a feasibility study looking at our facilities, the museum, the town hall, the political shop, the community center. To summarize, when Dave and I met with Tara, I'm looking for the end result. Okay, number one, two things. Number one is what specifically are you recommending? Pretty common sense. You know, glazing windows, thermostat controls, upgrading lights to LEDs, replacing furnace HVAC systems. So, and we were direct with Tara. It's like, these are things we can do, and I respect what they're trying to accomplish. At the end of the day, if you look toward the facility comparable table toward the end, and it has the 4 facilities and it has the numbers with them. When Dave and I saw this, when we're talking to Tara, it's like we're looking at maybe an annual $5,000 savings after $100,000 plus dollar investment. The numbers don't add up. So Dave and I are already working with, actually later this week, we're going to talk to a gentleman at a contractor at the community center to get his ideas on what we can do and how we can save money. To date, David gave me, museum ladies were cold the other day when we found out the furnace is going out, so we're going to replace that furnace over there with an energy efficiency HVAC system.
Well, they have a large budget around.
Museum, not the library.
Oh. This is attached to the building, I'm sorry.
But even here, there's some glazing that we can do. All these lights, we can work with local contractors and replace these for LED. These put motion sensors on the lights, especially the bathrooms. And Tara, she understood that, she admitted, I mean, we're not looking at huge cost savings. Would we be more energy efficient? Yeah. Do we need a contract with them? No. So that's my proposal, that we move on, let Dave and I work on the community center renovations. When we get in the budget, start to maybe put some money aside to do some town hall upgrades with windows, light switches. We're already gonna replace the HVAC system over at the museum because it just needs to be. How old is that system, Dave?
At the museum, it's around my age, so between 40 and 50.
So,
Which is actually pretty good, because they say furnaces, if you get 20 plus out of them, or around 20, you've done really well. And we found the original paperwork, I want to say it was a 1974 stamp that was on that.
Wow.
So,
What's the performance expectancy in years of a public works director?
I want to answer that.
I think that has something to do with like dog years or cat years or something like that, right?
I think we're talking about LED lights, the fluorescent lights in my wife's office, those LEDs. And Lowe's has some real nice LED lights, and there's another company that's getting, give 2x4s for us at a really good price, and it's not that expensive to.
Exactly. I think it's something that Dave and I can work directly with vendors, contractors.
There's a contract through Greeley that has a.
Well, part of what we were looking at here are the actual LED panels that are similar to your flat screen TVs. So we're not even doing the bulbs because they.
Yeah, it's a strip, and then.
Well, no, it's not even a strip. We removed this whole assembly and just lay the new, LED panel.
Right, but the LED's a strip light.
Oh, it could.
Strip of LEDs, that's where you get your light from.
Okay,
Yeah.
and I mean, basically, she said it looks like a white TV screen in the
Yeah.
ceiling.
I mean, it's amazing, the LED's like, whoa.
Yeah, so, and we did get some prices on doing just like the boardroom and the front office, so we've got an idea of what that would be. And currently, Excel is still offering a little bit of a rebate on those as well, so.
Well, I think this is a testament to our employees and staff. You guys see things, you work on them, you try to make things as efficient as possible, so I sincerely thank you.
Appreciate that. The only lights we probably won't change is in Ray's office, because she hasn't turned them on in 4 years.
Take them out, it's gonna be another guy. Replace some of these bulbs.
I had to
There you
tease,
go.
I had to tease Mary.
She's got all that natural sunlight coming in her office.
Oh.
She doesn't-
Yeah.
There you go, daylight it.
And in all seriousness, part of it is just, not getting on the employees, but just reminding them. I mean, Mary and I talked, I mean, I'm better now that when I leave tonight, I'll check the bathrooms and make sure lights are off, I mean, just simple stuff like that.
With simple things like that, you could probably either keep it in-house and change out those light switches, or hire a local contractor, like you said. You just start with small things, change out the light switches in the bathrooms or rooms that are used as a sensor switch.
But they didn't just check lights, they checked all of our
Yeah.
facilities, all of our operation, and this is what they could find. So to me, that speaks volumes
Yeah.
to our staff.
Yeah.
They did say that sometimes they have gone into certain communities and they've been able to show that community a return on their investment within 5 to 7 years. And when they were looking at 20 plus for us, they knew it was basically a lost cause.
Sure.
So, sure.
So yeah, no, thank you, I really appreciate it.
But, we appreciate, we thank Tara, and I'm glad we did it.
Yeah.
We kind of do where we stood.
Absolutely. Seems like an audit to our facilities. Okay, so moving on, the rec director, senior coordinator, combined job description, Mr. Rankin.
This has been a topic of conversation for the board on several occasions in the last few months, knowing that Reggie will be retiring. I talked to her yesterday. Formally, it is May 31st. It will be her, I don't know if it's the last day or not, but her school contract, that's her last day. So she wants to coincide with the town. Before I get into this, I mentioned the mayor. When we hire someone new, I was really wanting June, when she's out of school, to be a training month. Because it's a very busy month. Girls softball, baseball's in full swing. We're utilizing our facilities, not the school's facilities. And we can do that, but we're going to have to do like a special 1-month contract because per retirement, she can't get paid that month. So just heads up, that's probably coming through the town attorney's approval. So going back on this, and I've thought long and hard and had multiple conversations with various people. When an opening comes up, first of all, doing a little bit of research, that since I've been here and way beyond, I've been here 15 years now, but before me, the town's always had a senior coordinator, part-time. And Reggie Gordon, Huntington, correct, started in 2000, I believe. My understanding, part of that, there were some citizens that were trying to run it, and they did a good job, but again, it's tough to manage things without bigger support. The town took it over. Reggie Gordon was what I call a tandem husband-wife duo. For most of their time, they didn't take town insurance because they both were school employees. They were just paid part-time each to make a full-time position. I think they've done a wonderful job. Got to know them. I've coached many sports since I've been here. So I can attest that a lot of good things have happened to the town of Platteville and the kids. As you will, on the senior side of things, we have a new senior facility as of last June. Activities are starting to grow, more membership. But I'll be candid, I've had many conversations about not that the facility itself belongs to the seniors. It does. We've had that conversation. It's just how to use it to the best of its ability. I've had candid conversations with our senior coordinator about, 40 hours a week, is that practical? Okay, I'll just be blunt. We've had those, trying to fill gaps. Monday, Friday nutrition meals are very well attended. Thursday activity trips, those are great. Tuesdays and Wednesdays are hard to fill. Some things have happened, but are they consistent? Maybe a couple hours a day, but I can't say my opinion that it's a 40-hour-a-week position. So I'm kind of saying the preface to where I'm getting here. So with this position, to say this correctly, I don't want to combine the program. That's not my intent. My intent is to have a director that is a rec senior director. That under this person still has a senior coordinator. The seniors need to have their coordinator. And if it's 25 hours a week, 20 hours a week, they'll work with the seniors what schedule works best for them. There's some seniors here tonight. They can attest to that. And work with them what works best. Many seniors are busy. They don't sit down at the senior center all day. But if you have event scheduled, an activity that's a 2-hour little trip, or you can have a presenter come in for an afternoon luncheon, not as much in the morning, but more in the afternoon. There's flexibility that doesn't take away anything from the senior, but it doesn't require a full-time coordinator. So,
Well, you haven't given us a year either.
No, no, you're right. I haven't. It's been about 6 months. But not just talking to a coordinator, talking to seniors and looking at, the opportunity arose. It's an option. I can just fill the position as it is with the rec director. I wouldn't want to fill it as a 30-hour part-time director because that's what Reggie was. I just didn't, it's a rec director is like that old saying, it takes a village to raise a family, and it takes a lot of people. A lot of volunteers, a lot of coaches, a lot of seasonal help. The one thing I know from Gordon is that the ball fields better not go backwards in maintenance, they better continue. That's just how he is. But,
He's willing to volunteer this time.
He will unofficially, without pay, supervise the new person. But it could be, I presented a proposed budget, again, keeping, in essence, the rec and seniors are very different. There's a very large spectrum. They both provide simple, not simple, but basic services, scheduling, activities, events, but very different dynamics. So I'm looking at doing a position. I'm throwing this out to the board for discussion. It would be a recreation and senior director. The director would be more involved with the recreation department. But they would work with the senior coordinator, sometimes open the facility if need be, just for the seniors to play pool, watch TV, watch a Rockies game. You don't need a coordinator to sit down there for that. I'm just being blunt. but the facility's open, the rec director's across the hall. My intent, as I indicated, when we renovate the community center, that front office that's never been used as an office, to my knowledge, I mean, Noreen may say, but it's been storage. It is built for an office, turning it into an office for the rec director. In the evening, there's rec classes there almost every night a week. Zumba, Jenny's dance class, and karate. So is that the best? I think it's the best place. Has some daytime hours. I know Reggie and Gordon did a lot of nighttime hours, but that's a necessity. They're school teachers. Nothing to take away from them. But I mean, there's times at night where I get a call from them at 9 o'clock. Like, what are you doing? Well, we're trying to get things scheduled. I get it. So I'm trying to be positive on both sides, not be negative here. I think it's a possible idea that we can try. If it doesn't work, we can go back the way it is, but it could be a budgetary savings that I showed preliminary. But as long as it doesn't take away from the seniors and their coordinator and their facilities and their activities, they have a new bus coming. And it maintains and enhances the recreation side. But I do want to fill the position and start advertising it no later than April, if not the end of March. So I have ample opportunity to get interviews done and hire the best person or persons for the job. Right now, I'm looking at filling a position.
So you're looking at a director of recreation operations person and then a senior person?
I'm looking at a director,
We have a senior.
a recreation seniors director.
So we would take Christie to,
Christie is the coordinator, and she would remain the coordinator,
at
but
the part-time 20.
and this conversation I've had with her, and we've had conversations for 6 months in the senior center. And they're not negative, it's just the community invested in this. We spent a lot of money. We want to promote it, we want the seniors to use it. I think they're doing a wonderful job. There's more activities down there. But again, from 8 o'clock in the morning till 4 o'clock at night, I think some scheduling, working with the seniors practically, that's very viable. And it doesn't take anything away from them at all. You know, with the new bus, instead of more, afternoon, I mean, I'm just putting this out there, hour and a half, dominoes and pool and this and that, maybe more trips on Tuesdays. You got a brand new bus coming. Maybe a Saturday afternoon trip once a month. I mean, there's different options out there. But that's nothing that a part 3/4 time senior coordinator can do.
Right, and if needed in the future, if it grows and you guys got more, that could turn into a full-time position.
It could again, but as of right now, I think we're still in the building mode. Like Hope said, we've only been this 6 months. But this doesn't prevent you from still building the program. But again, as far as nuts and bolts, as far as budget, instead of paying 2 people with benefits full-time, we're doing 1. Take away from the part-time people, but the recreation director will need, for lack of a better term, a coordinator or seasonal coordinators, which, talking to Reggie and Gordon, in the summertime, there's someone assigned to maintain the ball fields. In the wintertime, there's someone to help be gym supervisor, field supervisor during soccer games. You have to have those people on site. You have the rec directors on roll. So there's a budget currently, there has been for years, for about $8,000 to $10,000. That's what they do. They pay for the umpires, referees, field and gym supervision. So there's a lot of people involved with the rec department. So as a concept, I've been working on it for a while. I've gone back and forth. Adrian knows this. I was for it, I was against it, but I need to sleep on it for a while. About how to fill this to improve both departments, but under one leadership. Do I know it'll work for sure? I can't tell you that. I think it's an option.
Moving forward without Reggie and Gordon, it's new territory.
It's brand new territory, absolutely. But
There'll be some bumps in that road.
I don't have all the answers here, but I think it's something that
can't be
will
overcome.
That's right.
So, but I would open it up for anybody's conversation in the room. I mean, I'm throwing out an idea. I don't have all the answers, but I want to give it a try.
I do like the idea of making that over there at the rec center, the office.
Mhm.
Then you can directly coordinate there with the rec center and the senior center. The stuff that's in the storage, is that gonna go across the hall then, that's in that office currently?
We built that future ADA, not ADA, but family restroom. We're not there yet, but it's plumbed for when we need it, but yes, we put everything in there, that would be the rec storage, which is bigger than the office anyway.
Yeah.
And then retrofit the office, kinda like what Christie has down the senior side, we cut a service, what I call a service window in the hallway through that wall. And it already has a door that kinda splits, you know, so to speak, but we can make it look nice, and David and I are gonna talk to the contractor on Thursday about flooring improvements, lighting, paint, replace all the trim. I want it this way, Nick, I want one side to match the other side.
Right.
I want the same carpet, I want the same trim, because the senior side looks beautiful, hands down. Just maybe a different kind of flooring, because Bobby and people that help us maintain the facility, they don't like cleaning those floors. Because
The
it
tile or the carpet?
it's the tile, because it shows everything.
Okay.
So we're gonna look at a different, more industrial type floor tile, hardwood, something that holds up, because you have to anticipate tables and chairs being drug on all the time.
And all the dirt from the parking lot?
Exactly. New windows and doors over there. Those shades on the windows or blinds, they're probably original from 1986, I'm assuming. They probably, yep, I'm not ready to tell you. Half of them are broke or cracked or whatever, but, like I said, I mean, we've continued this for several months because I've been at odds on this, but the more I think about it, I think, again, it isn't an adjustment to the community. This community is used to what it is now, and community doesn't like change. But if we do it the right way, manage it the right way, I think it's viable, and it takes nothing away from either group.
Did you talk to Reggie about the big change of retirement? You may wanna just work into it and stay as a coordinator, director, rec, and just retire from there.
She's got a granddaughter now.
Now she's done that.
Yeah.
With the summer coming
There's your help
on,
right there, you know?
with the summer coming on, I think more so Gordon, because that's his time.
Yeah.
I don't think he can stay away from the ball fields, but, you know, he would be willing to help with that. Obviously, they're both longtime retired school teachers. They're great on training people. I mean, their communication skills are exceptional. I don't have any doubt with that. But there's gonna be some growing pains. Because whoever I hire may have different ideas. I expect that. Absolutely expect that.
And what were you thinking on, integrating the new coordinator, like cross-training, I guess? What's the time frame on cross-training? With Reggie, Gordon, and the new director?
June will be the primary month, but I'd like to have them in place in May.
So they have the month of May, so 1 month transition to then take the reins?
May and June.
Kind of ease into it. It's kind of a 2 month, because it's not like,
Oh, and June, I was thinking just May, because Reggie retires in May.
so she retires in May, but being a school teacher, she's gonna be booked with all kinds of stuff, in the year's activities. So what I was looking at is bring somebody in at a lesser pay, maybe hourly, because we still have a salaried person. And I think they would understand that, it's a transition. And then as June comes in, like I told Reggie yesterday when I talked to her, and she's in agreement, we just negotiate a set monthly salary. We don't pay her in June, she gets paid in July because of para. And I've done this before when Gordon retired, and it's all legal. As long as they don't show any income that first month after retirement. And they work with, and the hours are sporadic, a lot of evenings in the summer times. You know, weekend games, different things like that. But in the meantime, this person can spend time during the daytime hours during the week with the seniors, the coordinator, and learn how they do their things. Listen to their ideas, improve their program. So, those are concepts I'm throwing out.
Yeah.
I don't have anything exact yet, so.
A few times I've gone to grant classes in Reggie's stead, because she's busy at school teaching, and she asked me to go in her stead. And those grant classes offered grants for seniors and for recreation departments. They seem to overlap a lot in those different classes that I have taken, which was very interesting.
Well, I mean, part of it, again, I try to look as in depth as possible, look at other communities. The only one find truly in close proximity sized to us is LaSalle. They have a senior rec coordinator, director. But it's not the same. They have a lot fewer activities. The seniors are a lot less active. Not saying anything negative about LaSalle, it's just the way it is. And we'll look at their job description, they schedule events for the youth group, but I know a lot, they're only a mile across the river from Evans. A lot of them play in Evans. Because there's practice more amenities. Football's not part of it currently. It hasn't been, because the Valley Football Viking Club, that's the most costly sport of all because of the equipment. Their rec director in LaSalle is also solely in charge of LaSalle Daze. They don't have a committee like we do. So those are the three functions in LaSalle. And they have a hard time keeping somebody, but they also don't pay a whole lot either.
Well, and I think I specifically meant that a lot of the grants were regarding participation and fees so a lot of that overlaps in different, in the same class, within the same meeting, but have senior directors and coordinators along with rec directors and coordinators, but it was all the same. Yeah.
And a couple of times, Reggie doesn't go, but a couple of times Christy went to some training for senior coordinators, and it's part of the recreation conference. I mean, again, it's different, but they're providing services to all ages of your community through activity programs. Is what it essentially comes down to. Anything from nutrition meals and activity tours and going to Blackhawk to playing flag football on Saturday afternoon. Wide spectrums, the same intent. You're providing service to all ages of your community. So as a director for senior recreation, that's my vision for that person, to oversee that as a whole, but they have their senior coordinator and their seasonal people in rec to help do the day-to-day activities and to manage those. So I'm the last one that wants to go take a step backwards and offend anybody in this community. I don't. But it's a new idea. I think it could work. At the end of the day, I'll admit my wrongdoing and say I screwed up. I'll be honest with you. But I think it'll work.
Never know if you try. Well, it sounds like a good direction on the road.
If it's direction that you see, which is mentioned in the packet, I would endorse your thinking so far and encourage you to carry those ideas forward.
We're looking at I-filled positions established by the Board of Trustees. So what I'm asking the board is, instead of filling a rec director position, to advertise and fill out recreation director, senior director, and not take away from the seniors at all or the rec, but just have one director in that building that has the fitness room, the senior center. It's kind of like the recreation districts I looked at, but the thing is, a lot of times when you combine, the seniors get the shaft, and that's not my goal. They can't go backwards, they gotta go forward. So that doesn't change. It's just maybe some slow hours from 8 to 10 in the morning, you don't have just the senior coordinator down there. Maybe you don't have anybody down there. They don't open until 10. Maybe they shift their hours. Those are my thought process. And it's gonna be some trial and error. I just gotta be open and candid and honest with people and just work this through.
And the help that you suggested was seasonal, you said, the part-time help, just for the summer activities and then also other activities, possibly the senior organization.
And that's something that we could look at, because with the resources, say that the senior coordinator isn't available. That's the one bad thing about relying on one person.
Right.
They have vacation, they get sick, whatever the case may be. Having that director with sources, they can't go to the rec department side and say, hey, I just need to go run nutrition. I would let the senior advisory committee do that. But if they have an activity scheduled and they need a driver to go on an activity, why not?
Yeah.
Why not have a seasonal employee that's qualified that is out driving up there for the day? I mean, it makes sense. You don't have to have a coordinator doing that. So not everything, but there's certain things. I think that'd be practical.
But yeah, senior wouldn't be seasonal.
No,
Yeah,
no.
yeah, no, I meant seasonal for rec and the rest of the part-time or the rest of the year help out when needed with the since seniors.
Oversee the fitness room and maintain the entire facility, go be in charge of that with maintenance and taking care of the facility. I don't think the seniors can, I mean, they do their own job, you don't mess with them, that's their room, so. They'll tell you.
We got volunteers for that.
So were you thinking the idea of the person that's taking care of the exercise room as possibly, I'm just that, the employee, because they're part-time, using that person to assist with the director then? Or does that position have to be, because they're only open, what, in the mornings and the evenings?
That's gonna change, it's gonna have to. I talked to the mayor about this, and I talked to David. I haven't talked to the board yet, because we don't have numbers yet, but when we first opened, I wasn't comfortable just letting people come and go. But now I'm at the point, there's so many people that wanna, because we basically from 6 to 4, then we open from 6 to 8. So many people between 4 and 6 wanna work out, because they get off work before they eat supper. So that's one big complaint. And there's night owls out there.
Like midnight.
9:30, 10:30 at night, go work out. I mean, I get that. My wife would do the same thing. I mean, you live a block away, she'll go to bed before midnight. I mean, seriously, as an example. But so what I'm getting at, we're looking at like Anytime Fitness key code.
Yeah.
And David's looking into a system like that, so we'd still oversee that, but it wouldn't be monitored during specific times, so to speak. The only drawback to that, Nick, is if the senior center, not the senior center, but the community center is not open and the restrooms aren't available, because of how it's set up, the restrooms probably wouldn't be immediately accessible except for during daytime hours. So at night, you go down at midnight, you can't sleep.
I just need to understand, there's no rest.
Don't stay too long where you have to use the facilities to go home.
Porta potty outside.
But those are little details we're working on, but good point. I mean, I'm trying to focus on the best improvement for the facility plus the programs involved with the facility.
And I was just trying to involve the person that's there at the facility now,
But they could be,
helping out, coordinating with the director of recreation.
yeah, they can have an opportunity to be reassigned if they want to help with the summer program or help be a field supervisor on a Saturday for flag football. I mean, there's all kinds of opportunities.
Yeah.
But again, it's gonna be growing pains because Rage and Gordon have been around so long, they have their network, they have their contacts. You know, so there's gonna be some transitions going on. I understand that, it's just part of life. When somebody retires and somebody else comes in, they got their own ideas, so.
Was everybody good with moving forward and
Yeah, sorry, I've been
working
pulled
with
up.
one foot in front of the other and?
Yeah.
I do wanna, since we have 2 members of the senior advisory committee, if you're comfortable, what are your thoughts?
Yes.
I think it's a good idea. Having it open at 8 o'clock in the morning does not make sense to me at all. I would never go down there unless there was some, you know.
I like Veterans Coffee, but that doesn't even start till 10 either, so.
And even the lunch group doesn't show up till time to eat.
Well,
So they don't have to do anything.
most of them between 11:30 and 12, so,
When
yeah,
everything's
Dine and
done,
dash.
then we're out the door, so we don't have to do it.
that's all taken care of.
Well, I definitely want to promote this in the right context where it doesn't get taken out of context. That the goal is we're not taking anything away from the seniors at all. We're just making it more practical scheduling. They have their coordinator, we're not doing that at all, not taking that away. But having a director to help manage, you know, probably 95% of the director is going to be their goal. Because they have a coordinator to rely on to help the seniors. But it's just, you know, it's like putting park streets and water and sewer underneath David, you know. He has more involvement in some than others, but they're all underneath his guidance, so.
Yeah, just new leadership role.
That's my proposal, and if it's okay, I want to advertise, not quite yet, it's too soon. I have a draft job description. I kind of meshed the 2 positions together into one director. But I clearly outlined in that job description that they will supervise a senior coordinator for the senior organization. And the senior facility will still only be used for senior functions. I just want to be clear on that, that's my intent. Okay, that's all I have.
Okay.
Long-winded, but I want to be as detailed as possible.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so moving forward with reports. I do not see one from Ms. Carver.
Go ahead, you keep talking.
What's that?
Yes.
You keep talking.
I know, I told Kenner not to even bother sending one, I'll send one next time. I said, I asked her, I said, do you have anything pressing that the board needs to know right now? She said, no. I said, no, I won't pay, you know, just so pay next time. And right now, she's double booked for 19th, and I said, unless it's something absolutely pressing, if you can't be here, then don't send someone in your stead. I don't need that, to be honest with you. Don't need to waste the money. She understands what I'm saying. So.
So moving on to the report.
Okay, a couple of things I want to just touch base on. As I usually do, I outline the packet as normal. The code enforcement, I talked to Chris today, he worked for Safeville, he comes in on Tuesdays for 4 hours. And we've known for a long time that's not enough time. In the time I've been here, including as police chief, we've had 6 to 7 code people, and they come and go. It's hard to retain them. And I wanted to wait to talk to Chris. We've been talking back and forth because he wants to go out on his own, start his own business, which he already has. He's trying to negotiate some pricing, because contract pricing is a lot different than hiring an employee, obviously. Triple or quadruple it in the lease, because they have their own insurance, their own vehicle, blah, blah, blah. What I told Chris today, and I told him I was going to talk to the board about it, I'm going to try advertising the position, because I really would like to have somebody here every day during the work week, at least part-time, if I could. But he's not going anywhere. He understands my dilemma. Because, you know, for months now, he's been coming on Tuesdays, and it never fails. Tuesday afternoon, or Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, we get calls. Can't get a hold of him. The front office manages the calls. Because Safeville gives him a phone that can say 10 messages. He serves 10 agencies. So the phone's always full. He can't keep it clear. He says it's impossible. So I probably, at the end of this month, when I advertise for a position, see what options I have. Maybe we get somebody that is willing to stay and do a good job for us.
So what is the reasoning people are telling you that they're not staying?
The pay is usually not the best. It's 15 to 17 bucks an hour. To fit budget. Do I need a full-time 40-hour week code enforcement? I can't articulate that. I try to do it like a 30-hour week. I can squeeze in a $15 an hour, 30-hour week code officer with medical benefits to fit budget, but no more than that unless you authorize more budget. And I did have that with the previous one, and it worked well for a year plus, but then with his, he was a farmer, and it just conflicted too much with him in harvest and planting season. But
So how much would you want to pay this person?
I'd start off at 15. I think that's reasonable for the market for the position. We budgeted money to buy an admin / code car. I want to pursue that, get a vehicle in place. That this person, again, I'm full of theory. In the morning, they can do code enforcement if they work 30 hours a week, 8 to 1, Monday through Friday. Then in the afternoon, when the front office needs it to go to the bank for mail, blah, 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 they have it. So it could work. I think with some benefits, and even 30 hours a week, 3/4 employee with the benefits, they get their cruise leave time, they get retirement. So it could be enticing. They could bring somebody in here. Does the board want me to pay somebody 40 hours a week to code enforcement? I just don't know if that's where we want to go yet.
Code enforcement just strictly is for Platteville, not for Crash.
Not anymore, yeah. We tried that, but not again.
Right.
Not working out there?
Just very different philosophies and types of codes that we enforce.
It's a great job for a retiree.
Yeah, got Cartman over here kind of doing a job.
Yeah, I've got a retired vet.
They wouldn't give me an app for it. I volunteered.
What's happened in the past is there's several times I've hired somebody that did a pretty decent job, but they were post-certified as a police officer, and in turn they wanted to evolve into becoming a street cop and not code enforcement. Officer Bonner, for example, I hired him a number of years ago, 5 years ago, and that's all he wanted to do. But as his life dynamics changed, he's like, hey, there's an opening in the police department, can I apply for it? I don't blame him. That's just things that happen. Try to get somebody non-sworn, that means they're not a police certified position. I know, Troy, you're gonna retire soon, hey, you know, you never know, just kidding.
I thought your last time was in December.
I'm in retirement now. It's a process, so I'm
Oh.
using up my military leave right now,
Oh.
so I don't have to go to work. I'm
Once
just
you're stolen out.
doing projects around the house and stuff, yeah. So.
I teach Troy that the military process is each month they work less, but they get the same pay.
Transition.
Kind of slowly transitioning to that one, you know.
So I do wanna fill that position, and my goal is if I can get somebody qualified, I've done it before, that's why I didn't fill it before, I just didn't get people I think would do a good job. They had, you know, when you advertise on places like Indeed and some of the social sites, I'm sorry, you just don't know where you're gonna get sometimes. I mean, I'm trying to think, you know, somebody that's sociable, can work with the community, willing to be unliked, be obviously dragged. I mean, it's not a very thankful position, but can work with the staff and understand the code and enforce it. Code is not black and white. There's a lot of gray area. I mean, I hate to say that, but in my opinion, that's the truth. It's like, is that really on a hard surface or not? Is that vehicle parked properly or not? You got 7 chickens instead of 6. Are you in violation? I mean, seriously. Those are examples we deal with all the time. So, I'm gonna advertise it, just so you know. I worked on the DOLA Ready Grant some more today. I wanna have that done by the 19th, the next meeting, because I want your blessing to apply for it and provide some matching funds. It doesn't require any, but you're much more competitive if you throw something into the investment. So I'm applying for $30,000 to develop this economic development strategic plan. So my thinking is throw in 5,000 or something. So I talked about Sandoval, he's all for it, he thinks it's a great idea. The application's due March 15th, but I don't know if I'll wait that long. Couple quick updates, County Road 30 and the closure of County Road 30 at 85. I spoke to, I don't know if you heard anything, Mayor, but Elizabeth Rolford said they have a draft agreement from CDOT, and the way this would work is CDOT would, through the IGA, give Will County $1 million. And then through a separate IGA with Town of Platteville, Will County would give us that money to put in savings to, at some point, build a new connection from 30 to 32. So that's what's in the works. We'd be hard pressed not to allow UP to close 30. It's been very unsafe, but CDOT initially offered $200,000, and I didn't respond. But Mr. Olson agreed to $1 million. And the goal is to apply for a DOLA grant, which is up to $1 million match, to get $2 million to at least do the infrastructure to put a connection in. I know David's been working on that as well, because there's a lot going along the railroad tracks. We've got Suncor pipeline, we've got Anadarko interest, there's all kinds of interest along that. So it's a little bit encumbered with utilities. Tomorrow, I'm supposed to finally get a call back from somebody at XL regarding the Circle Boulevard streetlights, which we paid for a year ago, April. And the utility pole relocation of Reynolds Avenue, so because the fire department submitted today their, what's it called, David? Excavation permit, so they can start doing some earthwork and start on this from there. And they're chomping at the bit because they need to work on that, to my understanding, first, that storm drainage over there by Reynolds. So I'm trying my best, I just can't get a response. What I did is I emailed the regional director of XL in Fort Collins, and we got the chain going a few weeks ago. And the person assigned to it has been on leave, but is supposed to be back in the office tomorrow. So I hope.
Is there any consideration about calling the commission if you can't move it forward anymore?
Well, I want to do the regional manager first, and he got on it right away. There's another person overseeing our project manager, so to speak, and he got back with me immediately and said, been on leave, be back on Wednesday, the 6th, and I will get a response to you. So I'm going to at least give it to the end of the week. Otherwise, the commission will be the next step. Or filing complaint with the Public Utilities Commission. mentioned, David and I are meeting on Thursday with Dillman to discuss renovation of the community center. The town received a couple of, I don't know, Mary, a couple or a handful of calls regarding our utility rates increasing today. Charlotte, filled
A
those
couple.
up. I've heard both. I've heard people understanding. They received the notices. They've written a memo I sent out months ago. Others, it was a shock. They weren't prepared. And we're dealing with it. It's a necessity. I talked to a gentleman today that asked what kind of increase we're looking at next year. And I said, it's up in the air. We increased the sewer rate and usage 53%, as you well know. Right now, the way the utility plan is scheduled, we're supposed to look at increasing another 18% in 2020, based upon the current estimates. As I explained to the gentleman today, next Wednesday, Dave and I have a big meeting in this room with our Public Health Environment, our local affairs, State Revolving Loan Fund, and USDA. And it's gonna be a very important meeting. We got that blocked out to see what funding or grants are out there. Number one, we're going after 300,000 grants, no match from CDPHE to help with the design and engineering for the utility study, or for the design and engineering for the facility. Number two, we continue to stay in contact on the 19th. The representative from Iowa on that alternative that Larry and Spencer attended the meeting. They have an alternative treatment facility, which is about the same cost, around $4 to $5 million to build. But in the long term, it's drastically less in operation and maintenance. So these rates that are being increased for both constructing a new facility, whatever it may be, but also 20-year operation and maintenance. So it's double-sided. I've been asked today to send out an update, and I'm going to do that as soon as I can, because now that people are paying more, in my opinion, they're paying more attention, they want to know more information, which is fair. I would be. So that's going through. I did confirm a couple months ago, I talked to the board, this is the last thing I have for you tonight. Any questions you may have for me. Next Tuesday, the 12th, we have that afternoon study session and training. I talked to the board back in December. I confirmed with Roy Rudersell today. He and I are going to talk on the phone tomorrow about what our goals are for the board, but it's a 2-hour, 1 to 3 elected officials training for emergency management. You as a governing body, especially Adrian as mayor, you have legal responsibilities when it comes to natural disasters. All the way from declaring a declaration for emergency to calling the governor. I asked Commissioner Kirkmeyer to attend because she's done all that. Through the 08 tornado, through the 2013 floods, she's very versed and knowledgeable about what role she had as a county commissioner, which I want her to attend that. Of course, Mr. Rudersell's been the Office of Emergency Management Director for a long time. And then following that from 3 to 5, Tim Warner, the Executive Director of Upstate Colorado Economic Development, and Kathy Schulte, who works with him, will be here. I received their agenda today that we'll pass on to you at the end of the week. We'll send it out. The focus there is they want to present what Upstate Colorado does for the communities in Will County to entice development, retail, commercial, industrial, how their program works. They want to go into specific incentive options for you, the governing body, to consider, that they work with other communities. We talked about today the Transportation Impact Fund. We talked about sewage rate, usage rates. When new development comes in, some places have a plan that it's the same for everybody. Other policies I've seen is it's a matter of negotiation. If somebody's coming in on new retail, they have 2 employees, I'm not going to treat them the same as somebody's coming in with 100 employees in their manufacturing jobs. So we're going to talk about that next Tuesday. And then they're going to conclude with a discussion with you on assisting the town on developing those incentive policies. Kathy really believes we need a policy in place, so when new development comes knocking, you have a plan in place. We're organized. So it goes along with that diagram writing. Talk to Mary, we'll have lunch starting around noon hour. That way, if you're just getting off work, just getting here, we'll have something to eat. We'll go right in, emergency management at 1, Upstate Colorado Economic Development 3, and we'll end at 5 o'clock next Tuesday. So, if you want to remind Spencer, or I can.
After once back on.
Okay.
He said he'll be back on.
All right. But yeah, Troy, just kept on talking, I'm done now. I'm wrapping up.
His horse.
It's getting hoarse, yes.
Drinks water.
Yeah,
I've got a question for
absolutely.
Troy. Was it about a year ago the guy talked about developing next to the car wash?
Yes.
What happened with that?
If you remember, the planning commission and the board approved that, but it was contingent on him addressing the storm drainage
Water issue?
going on the Falls Heiselach's property.
Right.
Dave and I, or Melissa and I actually talked about that today. Steve Lutheris has been working with Mr. Hebb's engineer architect. It's just a lot of back and forth and big delays in between conversations. We're about there. But our engineer provided insight on what you need to do. It's just, I don't know if it's financial, I don't know if it's busy or whatever, but it's still on the table.
Oh, okay.
I know Chuck really wants to get that rolling. I hope we're close now.
Okay.
Because he wants to build that office facility kind of next to the car wash.
Yeah, I was wondering if this never happened, so I didn't.
It's still there, but that property and the elevations and the storm drain in that section of Vasquez and Washington is very difficult.
All of
It, huh?
all of town.
All of Platteville. But if you drive around the corner by Shirley's house, if you look, the car wash elevation compared to the property behind it is drastic. You know, it's been a struggle trying to design something for that. But
Does that water, does that drain down into our ditch over here?
it goes Washington to the culvert underneath Main Street and then to the ditch, right here.
Right.
Did I say that right?
So,
Sort of, maybe. But, yeah, I did have a conversation today with Melissa and a gentleman who is working with Paul on one of his other properties, which is the old gas station on the corner of Goodrich and Main. And, he's looking at putting in what he called a high-end antique shop for retail. He has a store in Loveland, he wants to bring one in Platteville, renovate it. He asked for a copy of our streetscape plan to see what kind of, old west stone design kind of fit the image what Platteville was wanting for downtown. We'll see where he goes.
Wonderful. Any other questions, comments, concerns for Mr. Rankin? Okay, I just had a few things to update you guys on. I just wanted to, so I've been approached by the 3rd grade elementary class. They would like to sit down and ask questions and get to know a little bit more about their local government. So I'm not sure yet what date in February, it'll be later in February. So if any of you guys are interested in going with me to the classroom, okay. I will keep you guys updated when I know what date. They just want to ask questions, what our job is, where the town gets their money from, so on and so forth. So I told her we would be interested in that. And then also I had a conversation with Green Girl Recycling today. And she's gung-ho about coming into town and offering a recycling program to our residents. So she's working on a grant to get a bigger truck to make that happen. But hopefully we can get some kind of recycling program going.
yeah,
Would be essentially located.
Sounds like she would want to go door to door. If we wanted to do more of a centrally located, yeah, we could figure that out. She's open to ideas, and she doesn't generally do residential, so this would be new for her. But yeah, she has no problem going to the residents' homes either, so.
I think she kind of does Anadarko recycling.
Yes, she does Anadarko, she does the Aurora Organic Dairy. She's another one, I can't remember, between here and Gilchrist, somewhere, she said, up north a little bit, so. But yeah, she's in the area already, so. Seems promising. That's really all I've got for now. I've got more contact information for all of you in the committees too, so I'll email those out.
Very send an email with all the contact.
I have more people,
Okay. All right, rolling.
yes. All right, anything else?
With that recycling, is that a fee that for,
Yes, so yeah, it would be a service,
okay.
yes, that you would have to pay for.
Would she be, and I know it's new, but would she be providing containers?
Yeah, she would be providing the containers and she would take plastic, cardboard, paper, and glass. So, and, the way I understand it, you don't have to separate it. You throw it in one bin. She separates it, or she takes it to Boulder where they separate it. So, quite an interesting conversation, yeah.
For trash?
What's that?
Would it free up our trash?
Yes, it would. It would, she said typically when people recycle, it reduces their trash to 50%. I believe it. Yeah. So that's pretty interesting.
Saving all those beer bottles, like.
There you go. There you go.
A lot more than I was retired.
I know. I'd go down to the PX and stock up.
Anything else before the board? All right, we stand adjourned. Thank you.
I feel guilty with the white